All right. Well, again, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mariah Davis, and I'm the acting director of the Choose Clean Water Coalition. Thank you. And on behalf of our staff, our steering committee, and our conference planning committee, welcome to our 13th annual Choose Clean Water Coalition Conference. We're really excited to be here today. And thinking back 13 years ago, that's quite a bit of time. As I reflect back on that and putting this speech together, you know, our clean water landscape and the coalition looked a bit different. Back in 2010, the Chesapeake Bay Total Maximum Daily Load, also known as the TMDL, was just established. That puts limits on nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment pollution entering the waterways of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. That carries a lot of weight in the work that we do here today. Because of that and because of the TMDL and all of your work, the Chesapeake Bay and this restoration effort is looked to as both a national and a global model. At the same time that the TMDL was created, so was the Choose Clean Water Coalition. We were just forming, we were just born. We were created out of a need to coordinate, to provide expertise and advocacy support for clean water policies that support Chesapeake Bay restoration efforts. Back then, we started with just a membership of 60 Choose Clean Water Coalition members and organizations, and we were only working on 3 policy priorities. That included climate change, transportation, and the TMDL. So since then, we've grown tremendously. We have over 285 Choose Clean Water Coalition members, many of whom are represented here today. We've also expanded our work and we've expanded our staff. We now work under 6 policy priority areas. Those include stormwater, agriculture, equity, communications, energy, and the TMDL. So over these last 13 years, we've had some major accomplishments. I'm just going to go through 3 of them. So the things, you know, I really think that this coalition speaks to and the power and what we do. I remember when President Trump's administration took office and they zeroed out funding for our work, for the Chesapeake Bay program. Zeroing out all of that money that we advocate for each year at our lobby day, those severe cuts would have halted all of the progress that we've done. But our coalition members, we were able to act really swiftly, and we successfully saved Bay funding that year, which was a huge accomplishment. We've also worked to pass legislation like the Chesapeake Wild Bill, which supports efforts to conserve wildlife habitat. In addition to that, we're looked at as a leader when it comes to embedding diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice into our work. We've developed tools like the DEIJ and Action Guide, which is a custom guide for organizations working in the Chesapeake Bay region who want to better embed DEIJ in their organizations. We've continued to work with our friends in Congress to advocate for legislation like the Environmental Justice for All Act. And more recently, the Choose Clean Water Coalition and the National Wildlife Federation were awarded a $12 million grant to provide technical assistance to environmental justice communities. I'm very proud of this work. I'm also very proud to do it with all of you. We've accomplished a lot together. It's very clear that we've had a lot of wins, but we've also had some losses. This time last year, we honored Congressman McEachin with an award, a Congressional Chesapeake Clean Water Champion Award for his work on environmental justice. And in 2018, at our Lancaster conference, we also gave Nick DePasquale an award for all of his years at the Chesapeake Bay program. We've lost both Nick and Congressman McEachin in their battle with cancer this year. In addition, we've also lost a colleague, Sean Soares of the Virginia Conservation Network. So at this time, I'd like to take a moment of silence for those we have lost. Despite these losses, we have gained some new advocates that I want to recognize. Sarah Ramotnik, where are you, Sarah? She might be at the registration table, but she's a staffer with the coalition. She's actually celebrating her 1 year with us, and congratulations to Sarah. Her first day was actually at our conference just last year, so congratulations, Sarah. We've also gained some new coalition baby advocates. You might be wondering where Kristen Riley is. She's the director of the Choose Clean Water Coalition. Her and her husband, Jake Riley, they just welcomed their second child. They're both on leave. So congratulations to Kristen and Jake for welcoming baby Lucas. You'll see Jake and Kristen tonight at the reception. So please say hi. So all this to say, I'm very proud to be up here with all of you today, having experienced both highs and lows in this work. We've experienced a lot together, to include a pandemic. That was really tough. That was really hard. So not only can I call many of you my colleagues, but you're also my friends. I truly mean that. None of this at all would be possible without the commitment of clean water champions like yourselves. The power of the Choose Clean Water Coalition rests in the scope and the diversity of our membership. I'm very inspired by our conference theme this year and feel that this is truly a keystone moment for our collective future. We're excited to gather again in Pennsylvania since being back here in 2018. And this year's conference theme captures where we are in our effort to restore the rivers and streams that flow throughout the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We're at a very critical juncture when it comes to this work as we approach the 2025 deadline to have all pollution control measures in place. You'll hear more about that during a plenary panel tomorrow called 2025 and Beyond, What's Next for the Chesapeake Bay Cleanup. So this year, we're offering a variety of conference sessions, workshops, and field trips. I hope you'll take the next 2 days to learn, to connect, and to immerse yourselves in the content that we've provided for you. Before I transition into the next item, I do want to give a shout out to all of our volunteers who are helping out at the registration desk with the field trips. I also want to give a huge shout out to our conference planning team. If you were on the conference planning team this year, can you please stand up? I would love to acknowledge you and thank you for all of your work, for helping us put this together. So thank you so much for all of your time. We truly couldn't pull this off without all of you. So it's now my pleasure to welcome Molly Parzan. Molly is a co-chair of the Choose Clean Water Coalition, our steering committee, and she's also the executive director of the Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania. So welcome, Molly.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pennsylvania. My name is Molly Parzan, and I'm the Executive Director of Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania and co-chair of the Choose Clean Water Coalition Steering Committee. On behalf of my fellow co-chairs and the entire steering committee, I'm thrilled to welcome you to Harrisburg for our 2023 Choose Clean Water Conference. The theme of this conference is a keystone moment, our collective future. And I don't think I have to tell anyone in this room how important Pennsylvania is to the collective future of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Half of all the fresh water that flows into the bay comes from Pennsylvania, and specifically from the Susquehanna River Basin, which covers half the land area of the Commonwealth. Yet, Pennsylvania has historically fallen behind the other Bay states in meeting our cleanup goals for 2025. For years, our pollution reduction efforts have been dramatically underfunded. Recent estimates have identified the need for an additional $320 million per year to meet our goals. And the results of this inaction can be seen across the Commonwealth. Yesterday in a meeting, our friend John Dawes with the Foundation for PA Watersheds shared a fact that I think demonstrates the depth and the breadth of what we're facing here in the state and the urgency with which we need to confront it. He told us that Pennsylvania has over 119,000 dead toxic acres of land in the Bay watershed due to abandoned mines. And each time it rains, the acid mine drainage further amplifies the problem. Additionally, over 15,000 miles of Pennsylvania's waterways are impaired, and we contribute 43% of the excess nitrogen in the Bay. As a Pennsylvanian and as an environmentalist in this work, I can speak firsthand to the challenges we faced in meeting our goals. And I feel the frustration from our community that we continue to contribute more problems than solutions. Not to be a bummer, I think we have reached a tipping point, though. Some recent wins at the federal and state level have provided really exciting opportunities to break this impasse and invest fully in our responsibilities to clean up the Bay. Pennsylvania's 2022 bipartisan state budget, which CVPA and so many of our other partners in the state in this room worked on, was the most pro-environment we've seen in years. This budget took funds from the American Rescue Plan and invested $696 million through programs like Growing Greener and the new Clean Streams Fund in protecting and restoring our waterways. These funds will support everything from cleaning up those 119,000 acres of toxic land to making our parks and recreation areas more accessible to all, to establishing programs which will help farmers implement conservation-friendly practices and help municipalities reduce stormwater runoff. These investments were truly a bipartisan effort and give me tremendous hope for the future of our work in this state. We're excited to work with pro-environmental leadership in both parties in the state legislature, as well as in the new Shapiro administration, to explore even more avenues for further advancing this work in the coming legislative session. From further increasing the available funding to meet our goals to policies that help us fight climate change, our movement is in a better position than ever to make Pennsylvania a better partner in Bay restoration. And at the federal level, I know many of us are thrilled about the recent investments of the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I know we're also starting to work on Farm Bill reauthorization. This is another key moment for Pennsylvania to step up our work to clean the Bay. 55% of the nitrogen pollution reduction targets come from Pennsylvania farms, and this represents truly a tremendous opportunity to increase access to and knowledge of conservation-friendly agricultural practices. This is real and meaningful progress, and as a Pennsylvanian and as an advocate in this room, I hope you'll all share in my excitement about it. Now, we can't have a conversation about progress on conservation in Pennsylvania's waterways without talking about our next speaker, Secretary of the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Cindy Dunn. Since 2015, Secretary Dunn has worked to make Pennsylvania a leader in conservation. Her work is a true embodiment of Pennsylvania's Environmental Rights Amendment, and she's devoted her career to protecting Pennsylvanians' rights to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment, as stated in our amendment. From innovative programs that connect young people to jobs in the outdoors, to spearheading investments in water restoration and climate change mitigation, Secretary Dunn's leadership has improved the lives of Pennsylvanians across the state. And additionally, as many of you know, she's a longtime friend and colleague to so many of us in this room. She served on the staffs at Penn Future, Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. In exciting news, we fully expect Secretary Dunn to be reconfirmed to her position shortly, and we are thrilled to continue working with her towards a cleaner water future for Pennsylvania. Welcome, Secretary Dunn, and thank you so much for your work.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to see everyone. I was looking around the room, see so many old friends and new friends, and it's very rewarding for me to be here in front of you. I was just, couldn't help reflecting about the trajectory of this Bay work we've all done together for 3 decades. And some of us have been around for most of it. And the changes in the approach have been remarkable. I remember the early Bay meetings when we get in a car in Pennsylvania, drive down to Annapolis, always at the Crab Shack, and sit in the perimeter of a crowded, hot room. And every map of the Bay showed this little nubbin on the top corner, which was the Susquehanna. It was just like, just a few inches or just a little nubbin of something that was the Susquehanna River. And the discussion was all about the Bay. And yet progress was not being made on the Bay. Well, obviously, to choose clean water, you've got to choose a clean watershed. And this coalition has been watershed-wide, active across the watershed from the beginning, and active across the spectrum of watershed residents. So it's a very effective coalition. I'm very proud that I've been part of it in both the nonprofit role and also very supportive and enthusiastic about your work as a government official. I'm here with Nicole Farraguna, our policy director, who is somewhere. There she is over there. We have a strategic retreat going on back at the office, focusing on our forward priorities, climate, DEI, and recreation. So we don't have my full team here, but they would have loved to have been here. But I'll use a few slides just to give you something to look at other than me as I talk about a few things in our mission area at DCNR that relate to your work, with the hope of building that alliance between your work and ours even more deeply than it is. So anyway, we're extremely happy that you're here in Pennsylvania. This is a coalition that's been in Pennsylvania numerous times. I also, just one more memory. Sorry, I can't help myself. I remember going to a Chesapeake Bay Commission meeting way back in probably the 90s, and they had ventured north of the Mason-Dixon for the first time for a meeting, and they were in southern Lancaster County. And the Chesapeake Bay Commission chair at the time said, "So happy to be here at the headwaters of the Bay." I'm like, I think my surprise showed in my face. They got to be, kidding me. You are 20 miles up on the Susquehanna and the Bay. The headwaters are 444 mile long Susquehanna, way up in Cooperstown. So there's a far distance from the headwaters. But anyway, all that said, as Molly pointed out, we are directed, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania public employees are directed to serve as a trustee of the public natural resources, a clean air, pure water, aesthetic, and natural environment available to all citizens, including generations yet to come. So this work really drives DCNR's mission. We were formed just about 28 years ago from parts of bureaus and other parts of DER, some of which had been around since 1836 and some had been around since early 1900s. But the core principles the agency was founded on pulled directly from the Constitution. So our agency's mission is tied very deeply to the Constitution. And the words of this amendment really speak to us in terms of our service to all and access for all. So it's embedded in our daily work. It's embedded in our forward-looking work and in the realization of our goals to serve all Pennsylvanians. That's everyone. DEI work fits into that. And for generations yet to come. You can't do that without getting deeply involved in climate change. So that's driving our strategic initiatives going forward. We are the Pennsylvania, of course, is the biggest contributor to the Bay watershed. I think I skipped a slide, but we're half the watershed, half the water. But DCNR is the largest landowner in Pennsylvania. 2.2 million acres of forest land, 124 state parks. And I believe it's true to say we're the largest landowner in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. I think U.S. Forest Service may come close, but DCNR's, the 2.2 million acres in the DCNR management, this really belongs to the citizens of Pennsylvania, but under our management, of that, over 1.5 million is in the Chesapeake watershed. So that makes us the largest landowner in the whole Chesapeake Bay watershed. So we have a strong responsibility and opportunity to do our part for the watershed. And we do take that stewardship responsibility very seriously. Currently, the whole Commonwealth-wide, we're about 60% forested. And that, for the first time, that number is actually creeping downward. Some of the sprawl development, warehouse development, some of the conversions we're seeing on land. And DCNR actually has a mission for all forests of Pennsylvania, not just the ones under ownership. We have a really a strong outreach program for private landowners. So we're seeing some concerning trends on forest land use cover, which is obviously the cleanest, best land use cover, for the watershed, for the streams. We are really upping our work in old growth forests, partly to give citizens of Pennsylvania, Penn's Woods, access to what Pennsylvania was and looked like. And so our goal is to work with the Old Growth Forest Network and put an old growth forest in action in every county. Some of these are going to be growing into an old growth forest. Obviously, a lot of Pennsylvania was cut over at the turn of the century, but the stewardship of them will give access to all. And we also have one of the largest state park systems in the country, and we use that. I'll tell you a few ways down the line here about how we use that to engage people in the environment, in the conservation mission, and in clean water. A lot of our focus directly in the Bay has been focused on watershed work. As I mentioned, we have a lot of land in Pennsylvania in the Susquehanna watershed. Our watershed programs are statewide, both politically and realistically. That's the way you roll out an effective program in Pennsylvania. People in the Delaware care about clean water. People in the Ohio Basin care about clean water. A lot of our priority work is in the Susquehanna Basin due to the TMDL and due to the need to clean up the Chesapeake. The focus we've taken at DCNR, the thing that many of you are directly involved in, is forested buffers along the streams. If you meet the Pennsylvanians at the reception tonight, everyone from Pennsylvania, no matter what organization they're from, has dirty fingernails. It's because the partner groups from Choose Clean Water, the state officials, everyone's planting trees. The buffer goals are huge in Pennsylvania. And thanks, as Molly mentioned, to the funding stream that was achieved, partly from the feds and partly from the state, we've been able to really accelerate the buffer work. And another great turn is that the nonprofits, the nonprofits involved in Baywide work have all beefed up and picked up their Pennsylvania organizations and really put people on the ground and are part of the solution. I can't tell you how important that is. It's one thing, you got to be on the policy and the legal side, but to be on the ground and the solution side has been phenomenal and has really turned a corner. And this is important in a very practical sense. A lot of our plain sec community farm in the farm field will not deal directly with government. So it's difficult even for conservation districts, even for Department of Ag, like the most trusted version of government for farmers. It's difficult for them to be effective on Amish and Mennonite farms because there's an aversion in some cases to working with government. So the nonprofit partners who are the face of the movement are key. They will work with environmental nonprofit groups, and that is really, really critical. Molly mentioned abandoned mine lands. John Dawes is here. John does a tireless work at bringing in funding for remediation of abandoned mine lands. We at DCNR have 3,500 acres of abandoned mine lands in the matrix of that 2.2 million acres of state forest land. So there's a lot of opportunity right on the state forest land, a lot more opportunity to reforest and really heal the landscape of abandoned mine lands across the Commonwealth. And when you get a stream coming out of a mine, functioning naturally and processing nutrients properly, a live, healthy stream is going to lead to a healthy bay. One of our biggest advancements we were able to do, in part due to the ARPA funding last year, we acquired a huge tract, 5,600 acres, up in Schuylkill County. It's on the Catawissa Creek, and it's a joint project between DEP and DCNR. 40 miles of the Catawissa, a beautiful stream flowing into the Susquehanna, will be restored from acid mine drainage. We'll run a recreational park around the rest of it for motorized recreation. It had been a motorized rec park on an old abandoned mine. And that combination of money from recreation and conservation is going to bring back a major stream flowing into the Susquehanna River. So abandoned mine land is one of the biggest opportunities, and it's one of the best funded opportunities that we have in DCNR and DEP. I do want to mention, because you're honoring Senator Yaw tonight, I don't think it's a secret. Hope it is. Anyway, there's a little fund called the Keystone Tree Fund that the Chesapeake Bay Commission initiated. Garth Everett, as a rep from the central part of the state, put it out there. Senator Yaw supported it. It's a little fund. You can add $3 when you register a vehicle in Pennsylvania. That $3 goes to the Keystone Tree Fund. We divide the money for our tree equity fund for the urban areas and buffers. So simple mechanism. It generates more money than we expected, $20,000 a month. But the main thing for us and the main message for activists is it creates an easy bucket for the legislature to add money, or a governor to add money. Mechanism exists. The movement of the money out through the grants into urban trees, into the buffers is very smooth and easy, and it's not burdened by excessive obstacles like a lot of other funds are. So it's just something to think about in terms of your activism around getting more buffer funding or more urban tree funding. Can't accomplish any of the goals that we have as an agency or even statewide in the Bay effort without a lot of partners. I mentioned all the Bay partners here in Pennsylvania, to some degree or another, have dirty fingernails. Whatever else they're doing during the day, they're planting trees on the weekends and evenings and during the day. But our partnerships are broad. DCNR is joined at the hip with Department of Ag and DEP, and our statewide response. The three secretaries work together. Secretary Negrin is new on the team. Secretary Redding and I have been recycled, so to speak. But Secretary Negrin, in honor of his ancestry from Cuba, we're calling ourselves the Tres Amigos. And we do meet socially, and we talk a lot programmatically about our direction forward. Again, it's still fairly early in this new administration, getting our traction and plans together and getting people in positions over at DEP to move forward effectively as a team. But the partnerships with the nonprofits and advocacy community and the farm community and the urban community can't be underestimated here. I'm so happy to see that Winnie Okello and Rafika Muhammad are on your panel later today. So no environmental movement in this country has ever succeeded without involving everybody. I remember back when I was at Audubon Society, Audubon Society and Nature Conservancy lost the Everglades fight. You look at the voters in the South Miami-Dade area who are going to vote on this, they're Latino and Black, and yet somehow only the white environmentalist movement was involved in the advocacy. Oh, guess what? They lost. Okay, so and you cannot succeed in a major environmental effort without involving everybody. And I just think the Choose Clean Water Coalition really was ahead of government in its direct programmatic involvement and its outreach. Now, I think the Chesapeake Bay program has made a big move toward that direction. We at DCNR are very committed to that, again, driven by the need and also driven by the Constitution. To do anything less than that, as anyone who takes an oath of office to Pennsylvania's Constitution, is malfeasance. And so we take it very seriously. In fact, our crew over at the office right now is honing our work in the DEI space. And for us, one real good avenue for engaging everyone's recreation. Recreation is experiencing a moment. I mean, during the pandemic, everyone flocked to the outdoors, and the recreation in people's mind moved from a nice thing to do if you ever have time on a weekend to essential to human life. The health benefits, the mental health benefits, the driver for our economy, the value it brings to communities is not to be underestimated. And the avenue, we like to say, this is probably not PC, but in the office we say recreation is a gateway drug to conservation. Because think about it, I mean, why are you all here? I bet you had an outdoor experience one day. Maybe a grandma, maybe a parent, maybe a friend, probably took you on a hike, took you in a boat, took you fishing. So we're serious about recreation for a number of reasons. And we hired a director of outdoor recreation. Recreation is a science, like everything we do. And we hired a PhD guy who's worked all over the country guiding our work. And the goal is to engage the recreation economy. If you think about the economy that's built around agriculture, for instance, the feed stores, the suppliers, where you go to buy tires, where you go to get the tractor fixed, where you buy the tractor, there's this huge ag industry built up around ag. Recreation has this economy too. It's the outfitters, it's the suppliers, it's the cool craft beer you buy with a recreation label. It's the hotels and motels and B&Bs and all the facilities that are built. And it's the providers like DCNR, the counties, the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, and the Army Corps of Engineers who are providing recreation. It's a big economy. When we look at Pennsylvania, a state with an aging population base, and yet you look at society right now, people can choose to live where they want to live. In some cases, they're telecommuting maybe from a DC, New York, Camden, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey company. They're allowed to live where they want to live. They could live in Pennsylvania, in one of our wonderful little communities along a river, along a trail, near a park, near forest, and could really drive a recreation economy, could drive a much brighter Pennsylvania future. So, but to successfully succeed with recreation, you've got to have the asset base. You've got to have the clean air. You've got to have the pure water. You've got to have the forest, the trails, and the authentic experiences. So we and Governor Shapiro is all in on this, sees this formula as a success formula for Pennsylvania's future. And when you think about what that means to clean water and conservation, it's huge. You cannot destroy and harm the basis of your economy if you're building a recreation economy. And thank you for that. Yeah, so we're getting serious about recreation and really raising it up. It's interesting. In my interview, I re-interviewed for the job with the then candidate Josh Shapiro, and the interview really seemed more about like getting outdoors and where to hike. And then I had one of my first meetings with him. He asked for a good place to hike, and I gave him a local place, which is quite a climb. He had the whole family here in Harrisburg. I get a text on Easter Sunday, Passover, and they're climbing this mountain, and they're on top of the rock, so they did it. And tomorrow he's joining us for a grand opening of an important facility on the Lehigh River. So we've got a governor who's all in and understands that relationship. When he was a Montgomery County commissioner, he built trails and focused on the Schuylkill River. So I think we're in a position to really make a lot of progress. And the benefits of a recreation economy are one pathway for that I see that we can really make progress on. We also see recreation as one of our main portals to involve diverse people in this space. I mean, this room has really gotten better and better over the years, and more rapidly, frankly, than a lot of the conservation coalitions I work in. But outdoor recreation and creating pathways for people to experience the things we all care about, experience the clean water. What we're focused on in DCNR, some things we have to do a little differently. People like me, whose dad took them out hiking and fishing, it was easy for people like me to, just keep doing that, right? But someone whose family tradition has never been that or didn't feel safe going outside of the limits of the community they live in, there's programming is needed, making people feel welcome, creating pathways for people to get outdoors and really enjoy it. So we and our partners in recreation are really moving in that direction. And we see, again, I don't say, there's no media here, I don't think, but recreation is a pathway, is a gateway drug to conservation. We want to get everyone in. We are doing sojourns. We still support the Susquehanna Sojourns. Peter Marks will be happy to know we used to, when I was at the Alliance for Chesapeake Bay, Peter came up and led many sojourns all over the Susquehanna drainage, but getting people close to the resource and understanding the river, understanding its challenges, understanding how cool it is part of the work. And we're still doing it. And one of the really cool things, I'll show you a picture of one of them. We had the opportunity to create 3 new state parks last year. They're all 3 in the Susquehanna, in the Chesapeake drainage. 2 are in the Susquehanna drainage. Susquehanna Riverlands is in York County. Oops. Overlooks the Susquehanna above Wrightsville, Columbia. A beautiful new state park, part of the Susquehanna. Upriver, way up. So this is like mile 50 for those river rats who pay attention to that. Up at mile 222, mileage from the bay north, is Vosburg Neck. And Vosburg Neck is a spectacular bend of the river near Tunkhannock, PA. Beautiful. And that's one of the 3 parks. And the third one is, we're calling it now Big Elk Creek. And it's in the corner of Chester County. It doesn't flow to the Susquehanna. It flows directly to the bay near Elk Neck State Park in Maryland. So, and that park is adjacent to Fairhill State Park in Maryland, for anyone who knows Maryland. But anyway, this Big Elk Creek. So when you think about the untold stories in this landscape, freedom seekers from south of the Mason-Dixon line, Harriet Tubman and others, were moving people up the stream valleys from the south. Mason-Dixon line was a major milepost, wasn't the be-all end-all, but you had to get across the Mason-Dixon line. They were walking up stream valleys and walking, in some cases, in the streams. And the Big Elk Creek is one of them. So for all the new parks, and we're going back through for the parks and public lands we have, and finding these untold stories, we're trying to accelerate that work, because in a few years, America 250 PA, in 2026, Philadelphia will be the epicenter of celebrating the birth of this nation. And we want to get the untold stories. Yeah, George Washington's great, but there's a lot more going on in George Washington in the Pennsylvania landscape. And so we're trying to rapidly unearth these untold stories and get them out there. And that's not just for tourists and visitors. That's for people to understand their connection to the place and their ancestral connection to this place in the watershed, and the stewardship ethic that comes out of really, really understanding your deep place in a landscape and in a watershed. So we think it's very important. We're also advancing land conservation work in the state. We have a fairly robust land conservation fund. And of course, some of the best land for clean water is conserved land under management of a capable nature conservancy or a land trust of one of the many land trusts we have. We have 80 in the state, or in DCNR's management, or in Pennsylvania Game Commission management. So we're adding as rapidly as we can to the conserved land base in the Commonwealth. And thanks to the advocacy work of Choose Clean Water and our Growing Greener Coalition here in Pennsylvania, we got additional funding to do that and do it as rapidly as we can. So we aim to we have all this land that we manage, and in the face of a changing climate, we can make a difference. We set a goal for net carbon neutrality in 2030. So we're putting up solar arrays, we're doing power purchase and green sources, we're adding electric vehicles to our fleet. We're doing all kinds of green energy sustainability moves, including landscape work across the parks and forest land. But it only works at a system-wide scale if others adopt it. So we're trying to frame and use the public lands of Pennsylvania as a model to motivate that kind of change across Pennsylvania landscape. So, everything from buffers, Big Elk Creek State Park, one of the ones I talked about, we're putting in 300 acres of buffers next year on that one. That's right, that'll clean up the Big Elk going right into Maryland and into the Bay. But native plants, a lot of people are really motivated by pollinators and native plants. That's another big inroad to engage people. The great news about that is you can effectively do that anywhere you live. Our reforestation efforts are expanding into the urban landscape, given the additional funding we have. We hired a tree equity specialist, and we're focusing on really growing our urban tree work. It has a very strong climate link, as you all probably know, but number one, it reduces energy demand in the cities. Number two, it saves lives. People assume that climate change driven disasters, the main thing that kills people are things like hurricanes. But in reality, summertime heat kills more people due to changing climate than any other climate change derived change. So we're aiming to shade the city streets and the blocks to really reduce that temperature at ground level. In Philadelphia, one study showed that a treed neighborhood was 22 degrees less than one without trees. That 22 degrees is big in summertime heat. So again, we're upping our game there as well. So we can't do this without engaging future generations. The very Constitution that drives us is in generations yet to come. So we have 100 environmental educators out there working with youth across our environmental ed centers and the state parks, again, using the public lands to pull people into this movement to then to fill this room with the next generation of people who care about clean water, who care about land, who care about conservation. And our programming is very, very well designed and reflective to pull in young people from the school systems and from visitation. So that's another one of our initiatives, and we're working on how to effectively message climate change to engage people in action, and working that through youth and adults. So that's just a synopsis of the work we're doing. Again, to choose clean water, we're choosing a clean watershed, moving as fast as we can. We appreciate the partnership in this room. We appreciate the funding advocacy. We appreciate the advice. We are a public agency. Our door's open. We're always, we serve the public and we listen to the public. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and be joining you later this evening. I probably won't stick around too long here because we're going back to sharpen our strategic initiatives on the issues I just talked about and put them action items for the next administration. Appreciate your attention, and I'll turn it back to Molly.
All right, sorry to disappoint you. My name's not Molly. My name's Drew Robinson, and I manage communications for the Choose Clean Water Coalition. And so excited to have you all here with us this morning. Thank you. I helped plan the conference just a little bit. So glad you can join us, Secretary Dunn. Thank you so much for being here, and excited to see you again this evening at our reception too. To echo Mariah's comments, welcome. We're thrilled that you are here. And excited for us to gather again. The conference is certainly a highlight of the year for the coalition staff. I think I can speak on behalf of the five of us, and I certainly hope it is for you as well. But before I go any further, I just want to pause and take a moment to thank our conference sponsors. You might have heard us say this before, and it's hard to beat a dead horse. It's really true that we couldn't do this conference without our sponsors. So I'd like to give a special thank you to our Chesapeake sponsor, the Campbell Foundation, our Susquehanna sponsors, Ducks Unlimited and the National Wildlife Federation, and our Lackawanna sponsors, Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, Chesapeake Program, Chesapeake Conservancy, Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds, Maryland League of Conservation Voters, National Parks Conservation Association, Piedmont Environmental Council, Prince Charitable Trust, and SURCAP, also known as the Southeast Rural Community Assistance Project. Thank you all. Thank you for so much for your support. Another group I want to thank is the Conference Planning Committee. Mariah, you stole my thunder. It's okay. But starting back last summer, this group put in many hours into helping plan every aspect of this conference. And a lot of the great things we have planned is due to their creativity, connections, and passion. So thank you to our members of the Planning Committee. Don't worry, I won't make you stand up again, but I really appreciate your support. I have one other individual to thank. She won't be happy I did this, but I'm going to do it anyways. The one and only Amy Schofield back there on stage. You have all heard from Amy in the lead up to this conference, and I can say unequivocally that we could not do this conference without her. So thank you, and thank you, Amy, and say thanks to her if you cross paths. All right, I just have a couple of housekeeping notes before I'll let you all go and connect with one another before our first sessions and workshops begin at 10 o'clock. Be sure to check out our sponsor and exhibit tables right on the other side of that wall. Some cool swag out there I saw a little bit ago. Our first round of breakout sessions and workshops begin at 10 o'clock, and we will offer 2 rounds of breakout sessions, 10 to 10:45 and 11 to 11:45, and our 3 workshops are running from 10 to 11:45. The hotel floor plan can be found through the QR code on the table and is also posted on the homepage of our app and website. And we'll reconvene right here in this room at 11:45 for lunch and a great environmental justice plenary that we're really excited about. And lastly, don't forget your field trips this afternoon. If you have any questions about your field trip or need to change or cancel your participation in a field trip, please see our registration desk. And I'm pretty sure our South Wings trip is actually going to happen. I think the weather's going to cooperate finally this year. So really excited for that. With that, you all are dismissed, and we'll hope you have a great day.